Can you start typing in there, Hannah? That should just tell people that we're on our way. Okay.
Okay.
So Hannah, you tell us when we're live and we'll kick off.
Right.
I think we're on.
We're on.
This is so exciting. Tommy Scott, good morning, good afternoon.
Morning.
And I'm just going to check with my assistant here, Hannah. Are we live streaming on YouTube right now?
Okay.
And how many people have we got on the line, Hannah? 57. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how we got here because Tommy and I were all prepared up until about 10 minutes ago. And then we said, how do you actually, because we're on Zoom, how do we get our Zoom picture onto the URL that you all got? And we couldn't remember. So we're live. So I don't think we're just talking to ourselves. We're definitely live. So I've got Hannah with me. Hannah's my daughter, and she said, "Don't put the camera on me," so she's just over there. And she is going to be monitoring the chat box as we go on, because me and Tommy are stuck inside in Zoom at the moment. And we discovered there's probably about very precisely an 11-second delay between us in Zoom and our live stream in YouTube. So we're here. I can't believe it. So now it's because we're so last minute. I'm just going to do this just to prove to you that what we're doing today, in case you don't know. Hey, look, it's International Jazz Day. Hey. So I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to obviously take off this screen. By the way, viewers, I ironed a shirt today. It's the first time I've ironed a shirt in 6 weeks. And I don't know if you've ironed a shirt recently, Tommy, but anyway. So listen, everybody around the world, please, I'm delighted to welcome you here today. What I'd like to do is, first of all, tell you who I am. Some of you will know me. Some of you don't know me. Some of you know Tommy. Some of you don't know Tommy. I'll do a few introductions. Just to welcome you, what is this event? This event is a magical journey. It's become magical now. Into the jazz brain of Tommy Scott. And hopefully you can see Tommy on the screen. The reason we decided to do it this way was because when we ran Zoom sessions before, which were educational masterclass events, there were like millions of people on the screen. And we thought it would be good for this particular event for you just to focus on me and Tommy. And from time to time, I will also disappear so that we can focus on Tommy and his playing. Today will be a mixture of conversation between me and Tommy Scott, and Tommy has his piano with him as well, so there'll be a musical performance. So it's International Jazz Day, and what we want to do today is to look at, in the spirit of International Jazz Day, which I'll explain more about in a moment, what's happening inside Tommy's head as he's performing. And I think actually, even though we're talking about the jazz brain, it's also about the jazz heart, and we'll kind of differentiate. But it's about what's happening inside Tommy, the human being, as he is performing. That's a really good opening context. Just to tell you, on my screen here, can't see it there, ImproWise is the name of the organization that I founded, and I'm the CEO and managing director of about 15 years ago. And what I do in normal times and in these unusual, abnormal times is I have a mission, which is to go around the world working with communities, with organizations, with teams, sharing with them insights into the improvisational mindset. And I'm normally very busy doing this kind of work and have been doing for a long time. It's all about the spirit of jazz and how it relates to human nature. And we'll talk about that today also, but in a very different way, because we're going to be talking to Tommy Scott, amazing Tommy Scott, international superstar Tommy Scott, in terms of what's happening inside his head. And Hannah, did you have a comment already? Oh, it's okay. Oh, yeah, we're on speaker view at the moment. That's perfectly fine. Thank you, Hannah. So, in fact, let me put this on gallery. I don't know what view it's on. Who knows what view it's on? It's okay. I think maybe the YouTube stream is naturally in speaker view. I also want to say that before I introduce you to Tommy, a bit of a shout out, because we were originally intending to run this event at a venue in Cheltenham in the UK, and it's called Chapel Arts. So a big shout out to Chapel Arts, because if it wasn't for Chapel Arts, we may not have come up with this idea in the first place. And obviously they're closed down at the moment. Brilliant venue, and I'll talk more about them later. But otherwise, obviously, most of you are from other parts of the world. But thank you to Chapel Arts for giving us some original inspiration. What I'd like to do at this stage is, for those of you that are on YouTube, which is all of you, you'll find a chat box. Would you like to say hello in the chat box and tell us where you're from? So say, hi, I'm Alex, and I'm from Cheltenham in the UK. And Hannah, who's monitoring the chat box, will tell me shortly what kind of amazing people we have from around the world. And we've got 96 of you watching at the moment. This is so exciting. Okay. So what's International Jazz Day? Also, all I will tell you very briefly is that it was designated, well, set up by the jazz pianist Herbie Hancock, who is also a UNESCO Ambassador. What's UNESCO? It's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And Herbie is a genius, and we'll talk more about him shortly. And he set this up because he knows that jazz is a special art form, not just for the pure music of what jazz is, but because of the way it enables us as human beings to express ourselves and connect with other human beings. And this day is all about celebrating and learning about jazz and its roots and its future and its impact. And we'll talk about all those things today. It also seeks to raise awareness of the need for intercultural dialogue, and mutual understanding, and reinforcing international cooperation and communication. And for those of us that have played in gigs or been to see concerts of fantastic musicians, we know there's something very special happening between musicians. So that's what this day is all about. And using Herbie's words, it's also about recognizing jazz as a medium to promote peace, wow, dialogue amongst cultures, diversity, respect for human rights and human dignity, eradicating discrimination, promoting freedom of expression, fostering gender equality, and reinforcing the role of youth in enacting social change. I mean, this is big stuff. I mean, it's so wonderful. And before I go any further, I've got a message from Herbie Hancock. I don't know if this is going to work, and I'm going to see right now if I can share my screen. It's a 1-minute message that Herbie recorded yesterday, especially for you. Let me see if I can find this. If it doesn't work, I'll come back to you in a moment. But here is a message from Herbie.
The world is celebrating International Jazz Day on April 30th under exceptional circumstances due to COVID-19. Alongside UNESCO, the organization that proclaimed International Jazz Day, and Director General Audrey Azoulay, I would like to invite everyone to join us and embrace the values and messages embodied by Jazz Day. Freedom of expression, peace, dialogue among people, human dignity. Keep these values alive as you play your music in your home or on your balcony. Share your music through digital platforms, enjoy jazz recordings, or watch one of our past Jazz Day Global concerts. Jazz artists and the jazz community are resilient. There is hope and solidarity in jazz music, something we all need right now. This International Jazz Day is the occasion to tap into this spirit and unite around the beauty and power of jazz.
Yeah. How about that? Okay, so that was Herbie. Thank you to Herbie. Let me just take off my screen now so you can see where I really am. Tommy, that was Herbie Hancock, bit of a legend. I'm just going to say 2 more things, then I'm going to introduce you. Here I am in reality. This is my garden studio. So, ladies and gentlemen, Herbie Hancock said something very special there. I mean, again, why are we doing this? We're in the coronavirus lockdown. We were going to do this anyway. The whole of the International Jazz Day agenda and performances have all been changed. They've all gone online, and here we are. Herbie's a legend. So, just briefly, then, we said we'd take you on a journey into the mind of a of Tommy, the jazz brain. And I wanted to share my screen with you one more time before I introduce Tommy. You're wondering what am I going to do next? Here we go. So can you see that? I think you can see that. On my screen right now, I think you can see, here we go. Look, some brains. Can you see that, Tommy?
Yeah.
Now, across the world, over the last 5 years, there's been lots of research where they've taken poor jazz musicians like Tommy Scott, and they've asked them to, with weird keyboards, to go through brain scanners and to see what's happening inside the brain of a jazz musician. These are some of the real brain scans that came out as a result. And I think what's interesting is that they've looked at lots of improvisational artists, and some parts of the brain, when you're improvising, really close down because they're not needed anymore, and other parts of the brain light up in a way which is so incredible, which you can see on some of these drawings here, these images here. And I don't really want to talk about this really any further, but I want to talk to you about what happens inside the jazz brain, more in terms of how it feels to be a jazz musician. And I did actually, Tommy, I actually found one more image. I discovered what happens if someone doesn't engage with jazz, and I found that. That's a shame. Let me stop sharing at that stage and come back here. So, Tommy, hello.
Hello.
So we're not going to scan your brain. We just want to kind of take you on a journey. In fact, one last thing. I remember many years ago as a child, I watched a film called Fantastic Journey, and actually. In that film, it was in the 1950s. I wasn't alive then, but I saw it later in life. And they took a group of scientists and they shrunk them down inside a submarine and then injected them into a human body. And they were flying around on this fantastic journey through the human body. That's exactly what we're going to do with our audience today. I'm shrinking them down now. And we're going to go inside your body. And now we're inside Tommy's head. And before I even ask you to say anything, Tommy, can I ask you to open with a song? And I thought this is a bit like the program, what's it called? Anyway, Island. Oh, what's it called, Han? The one we did for Harry, Nathan? The Desert Island Discs. It's like Desert Island Discs, except Tommy's going to be on the island without any record player. He's only got his piano. So I'm going to ask Tommy right now to tell us, what would you like to open with? What song? And tell us, why is this song important to you? Is it important to you?
Yeah, I want to open with a tune by Bud Powell, and this one's called Bouncing with Bud. And it's important to me because this tune is the opening tune on one of the first jazz albums that I ever got, and I started listening to this when I was I think 11 years old, and the number of recordings, there have been many over the years, but it's one that I've always enjoyed and had Sonny Rollins on it and Roy Haynes, many great players on this recording. And also it's been covered by a number of jazz players, such as Chick Corea's done a version of it, and Keith Jarrett's also done a very good version of it. So I'll play it for you now and do my version of it.
And Tommy, can I ask you, can we see your hands? Because we like.
Yeah, I can swap. I've got my overhead camera. There you are.
I was going to ask you, are you on original sound or off original sound at the moment?
Off original sound, so there we are. Okay, great.
Which one's this now?
This is on.
Okay, let's enjoy.
You know, I'm just going to swap. This is creaking, this chair. We're in such a hurry to set up. I'm just going to get my proper stool.
First insight into Tommy's brain is that he mustn't have a squeaky chair.
There. I think this one's better. Yeah, less squeaky. I'll put that there.
I'll mute at this stage. Okay, let's enjoy the first insight into what's happening in time.
The Bouncing with Birds from the amazing Bud Powell.
That
So
is amazing, Tommy.
yeah.
Thank you for that. Dancing with Bud. When did you first hear that song?
When I was 11, I think, yeah, 1994, 1995.
Oh my God! Actually, Tommy, and do you want to? You can take your keyboard off for a minute and take your original sound off, and that should be cool.
Yeah.
Technical things to do. So, Tommy, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Um, so, I wanted to ask you some questions now, because now's the time when we have to ask you a few questions. We've got to try and have this journey through your brain, and I want to try to understand, and share with the audience how it feels to be a jazz musician, um, more than what you're thinking about, I guess. And I have the ultimate philosophical question to start our conversation today, which is what is jazz and what is jazz music? And I don't know if you have any particular insights into that. Yeah, what is jazz? Some music is jazz, some music isn't jazz. What are your thoughts about that? And this is quite profound. I realize it's quite profound. Uh, and I think it's about improvisation as well, about improvisation in music. Do you think that jazz is simply music that's improvised?
Uh, yeah, but I think a large part of jazz for me is going to reaching for things that you haven't played before. The adventure of going, not knowing what's going to happen next. It's a journey that you go on, and that's part of the excitement of playing jazz for me when I perform or I do a gig and
Yeah.
with other players and I'm playing jazz is that I don't know what's going to happen. It could be played countless different ways, and sometimes some magic can happen where you just go into an area you've never been before, and the different textures going on, and you discover new things. So it's a kind of discovery process.
And I think I remember you saying once it's like exploring the unknown continually as you're playing. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Always trying to see, trying to hear things that you haven't done before, and exploring new things. And that's really a key part of it for me. If it's just playing things that I've played before, I don't find that so satisfying, and it's not. I don't feel that that's real jazz to me.
And what if someone has, if you like, transcribed a jazz solo, maybe a great piano player, maybe a classical pianist or whatever, they've memorized the solo of a great musician, and they just then repeat it off by heart. So someone listening wouldn't know that they've just memorized it. Is that therefore not jazz because they're not in the moment, they're not creating in the moment? Um, if they've just transcribed something and copied it, is that just copying, and is that not therefore jazz in the spirit of the adventure?
Yeah, it's a copy of someone playing jazz. It's not real jazz.
Yeah, okay. And I guess I remember I had someone say once that playing jazz is composing in the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I think like jazz is like improvising is like composition sped up, and composing is like improvising slowed down. But it's a spontaneous composition.
And that's amazing, isn't it, if you think about it? Because how many other art forms would do that? I mean, I guess it's a bit like if you went to a concert hall and there was an artist, conventional artist, with a blank canvas, and you get 500 people sat there, and we're going to watch this person paint on the blank canvas. That would be quite maybe a bit slower. Some artists do that. And of course we met someone the other day who might be on this broadcast watching, and if so, hello to Aurelie, who is painting live in performances. But I guess that's this principle of composing in the moment is really special, isn't it? It's so cool.
Yeah, and I think the thing is when you're composing in the moment, everyone can have a contribution to that. But if it's all worked out in advance, you the one person is usually kind of determining what's happening for the whole band.
And I guess there's a difference between doing that as well as a solo piano player and also in a collective, in a group, because I suppose while you're composing, you are interacting either within yourself as a solo performer and with the audience, or I guess you're connecting with your fellow musicians, which makes that kind of improvisation, composition at the moment much more complex and incredibly beautiful. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the interaction with the other players that is really enhances it.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess as a piano player, you're lucky because you can actually go out and do a solo concert, and then you can do that more complex connectivity with other musicians as well.
Yeah, yeah. I prefer the playing with other players than for playing solo. Solo's more of a challenge for me.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's brilliant. We're starting to unravel, what is jazz? The big philosophical question, and also you mentioned a bit about how it feels. I mean, that it's exciting. That I don't know what word you used, but you said it was like an adventure, exploring the unknown. How else does it feel to be inside the music?
Yeah. It's a combination of it's the listening to what's going on, the concentration being absorbed inside what's happening in the moment. It's a beautiful thing to just you have to kind of let go of what you're doing. I think when if you're too much caught up in trying to make something happen and trying to play particular licks and things, it can stop the music from happening.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I guess it's a bit like a meditation, isn't it?
yeah,
We are lucky enough as musicians to do. So
yeah,
that brings me on to my next question then, which is about the story of Tommy Scott. Okay, one day there's going to be a book, and can I pre-order my copy now? But
yeah,
whilst the book isn't out, I just thought we could just touch on a few things about your kind of journey into jazz. And I think you were. I wanted to start. You were talking, I think, about. I think you said you were aged 11 and you went to see a Sonny Rollins gig. Can you tell us about that and what happened and how it felt?
yeah. That's right. That was my first. Well, it may have been the second gig that I actually went to, but that was a major uh, point for me because I'd not been playing jazz very long. I'd only recently started getting a few jazz records, and when I went to see Sonny Rollins, playing in Bath in the UK, it was I was only 12 years old, and I think it really made a big impression on me. Because it was just so fantastic. I felt so high just listening to him play, and this was 1995, and he really played well,
Brilliant.
and his whole band sounded amazing. So I think that was a major point for me in thinking that jazz was something that I wanted to do.
I guess, and that's something we might come back to, but that the importance of going out to watch live jazz. There's so much more, I guess, isn't there, in that experience for us as listeners to be inside the space with the musicians performing live, which is so different to listening to it on the radio or wherever. Would you agree? It's got to be live.
Yeah, there is something special that you're part of the performance when it's live. You feel connected in a different way with the. For me, it's the spontaneity of it. They're people in front of you that's creating this stuff that's never been done before, and also the sound that great musicians make when they play, and the way they the way they interact and with each other and listen to each other is
Brilliant. Okay, that's so. Okay, thank you for that. And I wanted again on your journey into becoming a jazz musician. I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about your. I know that you are a great transcriber. Okay, you are a prolific. That's the word I was about. Prolific transcriber. And as a young kid, I think you would sit down and spend a long time listening to the solos of other pianists. Who were you listening to, and how did you do that?
I started with I started off by playing transcriptions of Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea and Red Garland. I had a book of Red Garland transcriptions, and and then I started transcribe. I transcribed a few things, like a few horn solos and things, but I never really got into writing out piano solos note for note. And then I was lucky enough to get to study with Jason Rebello, a great pianist in the UK, and he said that I should be doing, really getting inside the sound of the piano solos by listening to them and copying the phrases until they sounded exactly like the recording. So I really took that on, and the first one that he got me to do was Wynton Kelly's solo on Kind of Blue. So I went back a couple of weeks later with a transcription and played it back like Wynton Kelly, and I carried that process forward.
Brilliant.
Transcribing, yeah, Kenny Kirkland, Joey Calderazzo, Herbie Hancock.
Those are some challenging people to
Yeah,
transcribe.
McCoy Tyner, very. I'm not sure how many actual complete solos of his I actually transcribed, but he was a big influence, and I spent a long time playing along with his records and learning some of his stuff.
Brilliant. So, I mean, that's a huge discipline. I mean, if there are musicians listening to us, I mean, transcribing is a huge source of inspiration and knowledge about the lines, the vocabulary, and the language of jazz. And I was going to ask you to tell us the story of when you were quite young, I think, and you went to see a Wayne Shorter concert at the Barbican, and because you were a cheeky little boy, as you still are, and you knocked on the dressing room of Danilo Perez, and you said, "Hi, I'm Tommy." And what happened? What happened when you knocked on that door? Because that was in your transcription phase, wasn't it?
Yeah, I turned up, and I'd been to a concert, I think the year before, at the festival hall, and it was a radio broadcast, and I'd worked out all of the solos that he'd done, and the previous visit to the UK, and not just the solo, because it's so interactive with that band. It was all of the textures, and it was like the whole piano piece. So I had two of these with me under my arm, and so we put them up, and started playing them back to him exactly what he played the year before in the performance. And yeah.
Did he say, "Did I play that?"
Yeah, he was like, "Oh wow, that's amazing. That sounds brilliant." Yeah, and yeah,
Did you say that? I wrote a quote down the other day. You said someone shouted out that you would say. He said, "Tommy's playing the chords of doom." Who said that?
oh yeah, that was Mark Mondesi said that. Yeah,
Well, I guess you were just a little guy. All the musicians were coming in, checking out this sound of. How old were you then at the Wayne Shorter gig?
about let's see, about 19.
So yeah, okay, you were a young fella. And what I liked about the story was, so you're there busy like playing Danilo's chords back to him, and I think Wayne Shorter comes in the room. And what did Wayne Shorter say to you when he heard you playing that stuff?
Yeah, well, he I wait I he didn't come in the room. Danilo introduced me to him. He says that this is Tommy. He's been working out all the chords from the latest album. And Wayne just says, make up your own chords, he says. Yeah, it's something I've tried to do
That's
more.
kind of cool. That's a brilliant link, because I mean, so there's you transcribed all this stuff, and Wayne then says, "Look, make up your own chords, man. Do your own thing. Don't stop transcribing Danilo's chords."
Yeah,
And I think you said Danilo said, "Remember that." That's
yeah.
So that brings me on to the next point I wanted to talk about, because clearly a large part of your young days was spending a long time really immersing yourself in listening to the great musicians that had come and gone. Uh, and there comes a time, doesn't there, when you've absorbed all this knowledge, this vocabulary, and the grammar of the music of jazz. Um, and I think then, I suppose, at some stage, it's time to develop your own voice. I mean, it doesn't happen on a day. I mean, it happens over time, doesn't it? But I just wondered if what your reflections are about how we develop our own voice, because you are now Tommy Scott. And I think I was saying to you, if you close your eyes and listen to some records, you can go, oh yeah, I can hear Herbie, I hear Chick, I hear Keith Jarrett, I hear Brad Meldo, I hear Tommy Scott, and when we develop our own voice, so I guess that's important. And how has it happened to you? Do you kind of remember this awakening in yourself about your ability to express yourself, to let go of everything else that went before? I guess that's part of the journey, isn't it, of being a jazz musician? How did it happen to you?
Yeah. I think it's different for everyone. Some people find their own voice more than others, or more quickly than others. But it's a good thing to try to be striving for, and uh, I th- I think there's a lot of great players that have started out copying other great players,
Yeah,
but um, for me, I went for quite a lot of years actually just kind of copying the styles. I would transcribe so much. I would transcribe a tune, say in the style of Kenny Kirkland, and then I'd go and I'd perform it, and it'd be pretty similar to the style that Kenny Kirkland would play. So uh, it wasn't really me. Um, uh, so I think it's just really been the last few years where I've had so many different influences that I've built up after over the years. I can kind of pick and mix things and apply different concepts, and it kind of all the influences just kind of start merging together.
brilliant. And I guess thinking about it, it's about having the incredible musical mastery to express yourself in the moment at any time. In the same way that if you're an eloquent speaker, you can just simply talk and paint a beautiful picture and tell a story. I guess that's the position you're in when you achieve a certain level of mastery of being able to simply express yourself, which is what you do so nicely. And I guess you're always telling a story, and I guess it's also a reflection of what's happening in our lives. So I've heard your music change over time because you're telling different stories, aren't you? Always. It's a fantastic thing.
I I think it's important to work on compositions and for developing one's own voice. And I think when I perform my own compositions, uh, it sounds much more like me because there's no one else has done a version of that before.
Okay, so that's incredible, isn't it? So, developing your own voice, and it requires us all to start writing and composing, I've heard you do over the last few years. And
Yeah,
then it's 100% Tommy Scott, isn't it?
yeah.
Really cool.
So so yeah, definitely. As I've written more, I've felt more in touch with my own voice.
And I guess, would it be fair to say that if we just traveled through time and we suddenly ended up in the year 2030 and listened to you, you'll be playing differently?
Yes, because I'll carry on listening and absorbing different things and practicing different things
Yeah.
and extending. Part of it is pushing myself to be creative, so
Yeah.
I hope not to be playing just the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
You'll have had a decade's worth of life experience, which is really good.
yeah,
You'll be running around, the wife will be in the background, be carrying your triplets, and try and play the piano with your left hand while you're feeding another baby with your right hand. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll be a different person in 10 years' time, so the music will be different.
yeah. So I think it's time we had some more music. Let me just double check with Harry if there are any questions. We've got any major questions?
Question before that. I think to make Tommy full screen, maybe did you say that he was playing through a different like audio?
Oh, is that a technical question?
No, we have a real question, but I mean, everyone wants Tommy to be full screen, so I think that's how you do it.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm trying to play with making Tommy full screen because I realise I'm in control of this. I'm trying, and I'll try and do it again in a moment.
Hang on, no, I think I've got control of that.
Oh, because you're hosting this, aren't you? Not me.
Yeah.
I get. So
I'll make you full screen. We're full screen now, so I'll leave that on for the next one.
Okay, so I thought I was controlling it, and I realised I've given all the permissions to Tommy. We have a question from Ollie. It says, "What are you thinking about when you're improvising? Is it pure melody, or is there a theoretical element running in the background?"
Yeah, there's theoretical elements running in the background which influence my playing, and I kind of dip in and out of them. But I try not to get too bogged down in theory or melodic ideas. If I'm thinking in a kind of theoretical sense, it will tend to be more to do with rhythm and texture and balance. And the kind of shape, building a shape or a form to what I'm doing, which I think I've improved at over time. But ideally, you should just. I think jazz works at its best when you're just listening, really listening to the sound that you're playing, listening to the other musicians, and being inside the music, and avoiding thinking too much.
But don't think too much. Be inside the music and be fully present. Be in the now. That's all you can be.
Yeah.
So it's like meditation. So that's brilliant. Tommy, what song would you like to play next? And why is it important to you? Or is it just important because it sounds cool?
I'm going to play Dolphin Dance by Herbie Hancock next, and it's a tune that I always enjoy playing solo, and it's always been like a bit of a solo feature for me. So, and I've found that you can do so many different things with it. It's a tune that I'm comfortable with.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's exciting. Before you play, can you share your piano keyboard, and can you put yourself on speaker view? That gets me out the picture, and make sure your sound is on the proper one. And then we're looking forward to it. Okay.
That should be all set up now.
Brilliant. And I will mute myself. Ladies and gentlemen, and please enjoy Tommy's second rendition of Dolphin Dance. Tommy Scott, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. If you can switch your thing back to gallery view, and then we can continue our conversation. And if you turn off your original sound,
Yes, I've done that. Yeah. And there's so many technical things here. Hello.
we need a clue.
There.
Oh,
Okay.
that's beautiful. How did you feel? How did you feel playing that song?
Well, I've played it so many times, but I don't think I've ever played it quite that way. So it was a voyage. It's from the album Maiden Voyage, and I went on a voyage.
And that's the beautiful thing, isn't it? Every time you can have played that, you can have played that song many times before,
Yeah,
and yet this was the first time you played it like that. So,
yeah.
so I wanted to ask you now. First of all, thanking you again for playing that. That was fantastic. And we had a comment, didn't we? Was it from?
Jeremy said he loved him the version of Dolphin Dance, and Julia said that was wonderful.
Oh, great! Thank you very much.
Everyone's going, Tommy's got yeah. So they love it. It's great. So I wanted to ask you now. Again, this is an insight into maybe not your jazz brain, but the jazz brains of the grand masters of jazz. So the question is, how would you describe some of the very human characteristics of jazz masters? And I don't mean in terms of if you specifically musical characteristics. I mean what it means for them to be human beings, because I do think that there are many incredible characteristics of being human that jazz musicians have. And I just wondered if you have any particular reflections on the human characteristics of the jazz masters. So all the greats that have been, that are, and that will be. What kind of human characteristics do they possess?
Yeah, a very good question. I think they are. They tend to be very good listeners, very good at listening to each other. Um, they tend to have more creative, exploratory minds, I think, and they tend to have more of an awareness, a self-awareness of their own place in society and within jazz, and
Okay.
a humility as well, I think.
Yeah, okay, that humility is interesting. Um, I think, and you said it before, is it about being within the process of learning always?
Yeah,
We've never arrived. The jazz master is always thinking, I'm learning, I'm learning, I'm learning. Is that right?
you never get to the point where you've done it all and you've mastered it. It's you're always a student.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, these are good, really good characteristics. And you mentioned about humility as well. Um, I can't say I've ever seen a jazz master that's gone, yeah, look at me.
Oh.
It's about like I'm doing my thing. You mentioned the other day, I think, about being of a sense of responsibility as well to the music and to humanity. Were those your words? I think I wrote them down the other day. Would you agree? There's some sense of responsibility to the music and to humanity.
Yeah, that's right. That's part of the kind of awareness of their place within society is the role that jazz can bring so to bring people together uh, to inspire people, and I think um, and to showcase the creative mind at work. The responsibility to share that with the world.
And that's brilliant, a beautiful description. And I guess we're talking, aren't we, about the positive attributes of humanity reflected in the jazz masters. I do recall a conversation we had recently when we reflected on some of the more dubious characteristics of some of the guys in the past. And there was a great quote you said, because we know, for example, Sonny Rollins is a guru, amazing guy, and I think did you quote him the other day? He was talking about his life, and he said, "I've done a lot of things to be ashamed of, but let's not go there." So it's a journey, isn't it? It's a wibbly wobbly journey, and but I think from what you said, obviously, it's mostly about the positive attributes, beautiful attributes of what it means to be an incredible human being, is what you're observing.
Yeah, well, jazz came out of very hard times in America, I think, um, especially for black musicians in who are playing jazz, and so yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. So life's journey is
yeah. So it was a different environment in the 40s and 50s.
But it still requires, doesn't it, everything you said, that sense of responsibility and purpose and humility and growth and being able to listen and sense other people. Even in the darker times, we use those as our guiding um, behaviors to take us towards the light again. That's what jazz is. It's so cool. And talking of wibbly wobbly, that now I've got can I do a Tommy Scott challenge with you?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm up for a challenge.
This is going to be what you think it is. I'm going to jump ahead of what I was going to talk about before because I'm noticing that we're spending longer talking than I thought, which is great.
Okay, good.
So, what I'd like to do is a time travel challenge because I'm curious to know and for you to share with everyone that's listening about the evolution of jazz because jazz is something that we've said it doesn't stay still. Jazz like the jazz brain and about the jazz person which is always adapting and learning and growing. Jazz itself as an art form has continued to do this for more than 100 years. So it's always changing. The vocabulary, the grammar, the language of jazz is changing. And part of International Jazz Day is giving people an insight into how jazz has come from its roots and how it's changed through history, where it is now, where it's going. So here's my little challenge. Okay, I'm a little bit of a science fiction buff, and I like time travel films, and I'm going to create right now an imaginary time machine. Woo! And let's call it the TARDIS. I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan, so it's the Jazz TARDIS. I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan, Tommy, but anyway, most people would know the TARDIS. And I want you to step with me on a journey through space and time in the Jazz TARDIS. Now, you don't know what that means yet, but are you happy to take that challenge?
Yeah, okay.
So we're stepping in the door, okay? And I'm going to ask you to take the song "Autumn Leaves," okay?
Okay, yeah.
And I'm gonna press some dials on the jazz time machine button disc here, and I'm gonna open the door, okay? And we've arrived in 1920. It's 100 years from where we started. It's in 1920. Now, I guess this is the era of kind of Fats Waller and pianists of that generation. And we've stepped out the time machine and we're outside, I don't know, it's some club, wherever it is. And Fats Waller, the real Fats Waller, is just running down the street. He's fed up and he said, "Oh, I'm going." So they're saying, "Is there a piano player in the house?" And luckily, we've just stepped out of the time machine. So, Tom, you've got to step in to do the gig now. You're going to play Autumn Leaves with this band. And you've got to kind of be in the mindset of 1920s jazz. What's going to happen? Could you play us like a couple of choruses?
I'll have a go, yes. Swap over.
And put your speaker view on as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm hanging on. I'm in 1920.
Hmm. That's just the sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, okay. No, so listen, the crowd's happy. We've saved the day. We've got to run straight back into the time machine. So now, well, I'll reflect in a minute on what we can reflect on how you were doing what you were doing there, but I want to jump straight back in the time machine. And someone just said there was a comment that the TARDIS was always bigger on the inside than on the outside. That's kind of like jazz. It's bigger on the inside than on the outside. So we're in the time machine. I'm pressing the buttons, and we've just arrived in 1950. Oh my God, we've moved 30 years into the future. And you're not going to believe it. We've just stopped outside the village Vanguard, and Bill Evans has had a bad night. He had a bit too much to smoke, and he's running down the street. So I'm not doing the gig. And there's someone shouting, "Is there a piano player in the house?" And I'm saying, "Tommy, stop!" So you're running into the village Vanguard, and by chance they want to play Autumn Leaves again 30 years later. Could you play in the kind of the vibe, 1950s vibe, the Bill Evans-ish kind of thing?
Yeah, okay. Bill Evans-ish, 1950s.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that is so cool. And we're going to reflect in a moment on what's happened, but I think we'll make one more stop in the time machine. We're going to run back in through the doors. It's bigger on the inside than the outside. Press the dials, and we're going to move forward. It's going to be, I think it's about 1976, and we're in Paris. We're in a festival in Paris, and McCoy Tyner's got the gig. McCoy Tyner, yeah. Oh no, Tommy, you won't believe this. McCoy's had a bad day. He had too much booze last night. He's running off the stage. He's going, "I'm not playing. I'm going." And then one of the guys on the band's going, "Is there a piano player in the house?" And you say, "Yeah, Tommy Scott." So on the stage you go. It's 1976, and it's the kind of 1970s McCoy Tyner vibe. Okay, so what's happening to the music now? I'm kind of curious. Can we find out?
Okay, I'll give it a go.
that was beautiful. Well, I saw on the chat to Hannah Tom, there's a great Doctor Who joke. One of the actors of Doctor Who going back to the 80s was Sylvester McCoy. So it was like designer. Yeah, good joke. So Tommy, so if you want, I don't know if you need to change your audio just to have a quick chat again now, and whatever you need to do.
And the other thing, that one.
Whatever you need to do. So
Okay.
thank you for that. So wow, we could go time traveling all day. Now, what I'm curious to know, what was happening as time went on? Obviously, you brilliantly adapted. You were like a time chameleon, and you played, that kind of fat swallery thing into the Bill Evansy thing, into the McCoy thing. What's really happened, do you think, over time in the music? It's changed, hasn't it? We heard it change through time. How has that happened, do you think? What's happened? Jazz has changed.
Yeah, well, in the era before the bebop era, a lot of the piano players played with the stride style in their left hand, with a kind of two feel with the bass notes and the chords alternating, and there were less the melodically there were less color chromatic notes and the poggiatura things that the bebop players did, so it was harmonically simpler, rhythmically keeping that swing thing going with the bass notes every two beats, and then in the Bill Evans style in the 1950s where we'd kind of gone past bebop, and we were doing an extension of that which had a bit more breaking up the time, more in interaction going on. Bill Evans would play across the time more with the hands.
And did he kind of reconfigure a concept of harmony as well?
Yeah, I don't know how much you're asking me to just talk about the Bill Evans style in particular or the general style in the 50s. So, but the Bill Evans was definitely a pioneer in harmony, that he was very much a classically trained pianist, and he knew a lot of the harmony of Ravel and Debussy and Stravinsky and people, so he'd try and incorporate as much as he could into jazz and Bach's kind of contrapuntal thing, and so he really took harmony to a different place than it had been in before.
Yeah, we heard it.
It was taken up by many players afterwards, including Herbie Hancock. So yeah, and in the 70s, McCoy kind of developed his style, which was there was more polyrhythm that had developed in the 60s with Coltrane's band with Alvin and McCoy. Yeah. Particularly, there were other bands, Marv Davis's band, that were doing different, breaking up the time in a different way. But Coltrane's band with a big influence in the 60s on many other bands at that time. So and part of the feature of that was Elvin Jones's polyrhythmic approach, which McCoy developed his way of playing with that, and so there's a lot of off beats and against the beat, and by the time we got to the 70s, I suppose that power from Coltrane's band, and also the fact that it was the 70s and there were a lot of rock bands and things, the power of McCoy's playing at that time with a lot of big chords and rolling things.
But I think it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, there's a whole concert just taking people through time. But of course, we were talking before. I mean, obviously, you're able to do that because of all of that transcribing you did as a kid. You immersed yourself deeply in the sounds of all those.
Yeah.
I And maybe therefore it's time to start to move this conversation on now towards the future. You know, we've kind of tracked some of the history of jazz, and I suppose we spoke before about human characteristics as well. I mean, I suppose the jazz masters of the 1950s uh, have the same characteristics, positive attributes as people, you know, further in the future, the present day. But I guess, but the vocabulary, the language of jazz is changing. But as human beings, they're still like cool guys, you know, cool people, human beings to be hanging out with. Because jazz is this, again, as you said before, this ability to express yourself in the moment and to connect with other human beings. So I wanted to just move on and ask you a question to reflect really about International Jazz Day again, which is why we're here. And Herbie Hancock, you know, as we know, talks about the impact that jazz has on the world, as does Danilo Perez, who I know you know. And it's beyond the joy of playing and listening, and it's about the other things that study and the listening of jazz can give us as human beings. And I think that both Herbie and Danilo talk about having jazz more deeply embedded in the curriculum. I don't know what you think about that. Is there enough jazz being taught now, or does there need to be much more?
Yeah, I think it would definitely help in society if jazz got taught more. And if it got taught in schools as part of the curriculum, that would be brilliant.
So explicitly, I suppose it's about the jazz mindset and improvisational mindset, which is different to conventional musical education, I guess, isn't it? It's not replacing it. It's another important component of it. Is that right?
Yeah, it's looking at how uh, what you can take from jazz and apply it to life in general. The elements of creativity and yeah, Herbie talks about not judging
Yeah.
and uh, going with ideas.
And,
Uh,
and did you say the other day that Danilo had made some comment about a particular target audience that he thought would benefit from learning about jazz?
I don't know I can't remember that what I was saying.
I think you said something about Danilo made some comment about that all
Oh
politicians
yeah, yeah,
might benefit from this. Is that what he said?
yeah. Something the politicians would really benefit from the study, learning to play jazz or some blues and jazz. Yeah,
Quite right.
yeah,
Tommy, I've got another challenge for you because I think you know Danilo's quite right. You know, the mindset and behaviours of deep thinking improvisers benefits us all in terms of the way we treat other human beings and about our responsibility and how we care with kindness and love for other people.
mm.
So after this live broadcast is over, could you call up Donald Trump and offer him a lesson on Skype on the piano?
Yeah. Then I'll see if I can get his number and and sort that out.
Because I think, you know, let's imagine he said, "Oh, yeah, I heard you made your Thomas Scott." And let's say he said, "Oh, go on then, let's see." He would change. The world would change. It would be awesome. So listen, on our next live broadcast on YouTube, we'll give you everyone an update on what happened when
Yeah.
Donald Trump had a piano lesson with Thomas Scott. That's awesome. Yeah, I want to ask you because someone asked before on the chat about whether you would play us one of your own compositions, and I'm going to ask you to do that in a minute. Just a quick preamble to that. I just want to ask you about the future, because jazz is, you know, the journey from the past to the present to the future. And what are your plans for the future? What are your plans for the future? What's going to happen? What will Tommy Scott become? What do you hope? What are your best hopes?
Well, I want to tour more, play with more great players, release lots of more creative albums. I've got my first album coming out very shortly. My first single should be released tomorrow on Spotify. It's my
Yay!
first attempt, so I'm hoping it all goes to plan. With a release tomorrow on all the online places, but yeah, going more broadly into the future, the more playing and touring and collaborating with lots of different great creative players. Yeah.
If you could put together a dream band, which by the way, this is it's not a big if, it's a little if, because I love your playing, Tommy. I just think you're a world class player, and should anyone be tuned in right now, that here's your request for the dream team. I don't see why you can't be playing with these guys on your next album. Who would it be? Who would you like to invite to play with you on your next album?
Yeah, well, there's so many great players, but it's difficult to pinpoint particular ones. But I really like Larry Grenadier's bass playing. I really like
He's
Eric Carland is a great
Hey,
drummer, and
Eric,
and Joshua Redman is a great saxophone player.
a message from Tommy.
Maybe Joshua and Larry and Eric would come along.
See, that's awesome.
Wrestled with me, yeah.
And as I always say to Tommy, if you have a particular wish, dream, just make it happen. Pick up the phone, Tommy, and when you're ready. But of course, as you said before, it's about writing and composing. You've got to have some kind of beautiful canvas around which to invite people to participate. And on that note, it's about time we heard one of your compositions. So, can you tell us which one are you going to play for us? And I don't know if you can tell us anything about where it came from. Does it have any particular meaning or what?
This is a tune from my upcoming album that I'm going to play called Change of Pace, and it's a ballad with a slight Latin-y lilt to it, and it's just really about in life you have to go from kind of change speeds like gears at different times, different situations, and sometimes when you're planning a set of music for a gig, you often think about contrasting fast tunes with slower tunes and Latin tunes and creating an overall shape to the program. And often you don't want just to be having up tempo tunes. You want to contrast it with some slower tempos as well. So this is one that takes the tempo down from some of my faster tunes. So I called it change of pace because that's
Nice.
exactly what it does. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, we're going to listen. Can I just ask you to do the technical things and show us your hands, change the sound, and put yourself onto speaker view? And ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy Change of Pace. Beautiful. Thank you, Tommy. Tommy, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Something happened. I was a bit distracted today. I wasn't sure if it was all working. I can only see your photo. I can't see your picture. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Hello? Okay. I think Alex is just maybe joining back up. You just hang on a moment here. So I don't know what happened there. So that was the tune Change of Pace, and I played that. I don't normally do that as a solo piece. It's on my album as a trio piece, but I do a solo intro on the record. Here's Alex. Okay. Hello. You there? You back?
Oh, I'm back.
Oh, I can hear a beeping noise. What's that beeping noise?
Right, Tommy, I'm back.
Okay. I still can't see you though.
I think all my computer crashed. I'm so sorry to all the public.
Okay.
You can hear me. Are we still broadcasting, Hannah?
Yeah.
So viewers, I'm really sorry. I just disappeared then, and I can't see anything.
Oh, sorry, Alex has disappeared. Right. I'll play another piece while Alex is doing that. I'll play you a Bill Evans piece called Blue and Green. ringing. Ah. I don't know why it's beeping. I don't know if anyone can hear that beeping. There we are. Ah, there you are.
I'm back, viewers.
You're back.
Did you just play a piece, a blue and green piece?
I started playing blue and green, but then it started beeping.
Okay, that's cool.
So
So listen, you turn the volume off on their hand. So we're back. I'm sorry, my whole everything crashed and it all went crazy. Hannah, you still got anyone on the live stream?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. We are back. So what happened while I was away, Tommy?
Well, I just started trying to play blue and green, but and I said about that I normally play my piece solo with a trio, but that was a solo version that I did. Oh, he's gone again. What now? There he is. He's back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, you keep disappearing.
I know it keeps going on and off on my computer. Listen, while people can hear me, as long as you're still broadcasting, Tommy, that's cool.
Yeah, okay.
And I didn't. Hannah, did we have any more questions or answers?
No, we'll just say.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm here for now. I think my internet's going down. This is a problem with the internet. So, Tommy, if you can hear me and if others can hear me, I just really wanted to ask you one more question before we come to the end. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And if I disappear again, you'll have to sign off on our behalf.
Okay.
But
yeah.
My last kind of philosophical question was about what advice would you give to yourself about what really matters in terms of how to progress through life and as a jazz master? What advice would you give to yourself about what really matters?
I think it really matters to be the best human being that you can be, and that will also filter into your music. When you play, that's a reflection of who you are. So if you being the best version of myself.
That's beautiful. And I was going to ask you as well, what advice would you give to everybody else? And I guess is it the same?
Yeah, it's the same.
So, if I was to say to you, if you could give the world a gift, what would it be?
If I could get music to be taught in all schools, jazz rather to be taught in all schools as part of the curriculum and integrated with the learning of everything.
Okay, that's cool. That links to what we said before. Yeah. And of course, I would say that you are the gift. I mean, I want you, keep playing and get that dream team together, keep composing and doing your beautiful thing. So I think I'll try and summarize while I still have a connection. Are we still live, Hannah?
Yeah.
Somehow we're still live. That's great. So, Tommy, we've had an hour and a half with some beautiful people from around the world. We are delighted to have connected with all of you.
Oh, you've gone again. So I'll say on behalf of both Alex and myself, thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and thank you so much. And I hope to see you again. Bye.